Good evening. My name is Juanita Senkis, and I am the CHIP president. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. Again, just a reminder, make sure your cell phones are off. We want to hear all the beeping when this videotaping here. Before we get started, I'd like to invite Alicia Pardon to open up with a prayer.
Grant us, Lord God, a vision of your world as your love would have it. A world where the weak are protected and none go hungry or poor. A world where the riches of creation are shared and everyone can enjoy them. A world where different races and cultures live in harmony and mutual respect. A world where peace is built with justice and justice is guided by love. Give us the inspiration and courage to build it. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. And if you please stand for the pledge. Pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Bob is here from Lorain City Schools, who will be taping here tonight. The forum will be facilitated by Mike Ferrell, CHIP trustee, along with Alicia Pardon, the CHIP conference and co-director of our conference, which will be this spring, April, and our Lorain High recent graduate, Ariana Marcano, who's now attending Ohio Business College. Thank you and enjoy the night.
Today we're going to meet a lot of the candidates that are going to be running for office within Lorain County, and we're also going to discuss some of the important issues that are on the ballot for this November 6th. Definitely encourage you and I hope that everybody will vote on November 6th. So we're going to begin today with a statement on the issues. Issue 1, we will start with issue 1. The person will explain very quickly the issue to you. And speaking for issue 1 is Shakira Dires from the Alliance for Safety and Justice.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being here. It's important that we all engage in our democracy, and that's what issue 1 is about. For the last 8 years, our opioid crisis in the state of Ohio has reached epidemic levels. We are number 2 in the nation for opioid deaths, and our opioid crisis has increased and worsened in the last 8 years straight. It's ironic that we're in a school today because in my book, that would be a failure. We are also the 5th largest prison state in the nation. The fastest growing population of people going into prison are women. Nearly half of the people who are incarcerated in Ohio's prisons are there for minor drug possession and probation violations, breaking a probation rule. Too many of our law enforcement resources have not been devoted to things that enhance public safety. 730,000 Ohioans from every walk of life signed on because they felt it was time. We were tired of waiting for a change. We were tired of hearing the stories of parents losing their children because they couldn't access drug treatment when they needed it. We were tired of hearing people who could not access jobs and employment and housing because they had a minor drug possession conviction. We want to make sure that people have access to employment, to education, to housing, that when parents need to get their children into treatment, that they are able to do so. Too many Ohioans are having to leave the state to access drug treatment. We believe that Ohio can do better, and so do Ohio voters. Issue 1 is on the ballot to make sure that we are enhancing public safety, increasing treatment options, and giving Ohioans what they need to ensure that we are enhancing public safety and increasing treatment options. Vote yes on issue 1 if you know anybody who has ever struggled with addiction, who didn't get the help they need. Vote yes on issue 1 if you know someone who has a minor drug conviction and is unable to get a job despite the fact that they are sober. Vote yes on issue 1 if you believe we need to have more treatment options in a state that is losing more people. 14 people a day are dying in Ohio. Vote yes on issue 1 if you believe in public safety and in treatment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Diaz. Again, the state issue 1 is a proposed constitutional amendment to reduce penalties for crimes of obtaining, possessing, and using illegal drugs. Speaking against the issue is State Representative Nathan Manning.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm Nathan Manning. I'm the Criminal Justice Chair at the Ohio House of Representatives. And I'm here to tell you why you should vote no on issue 1. I was lucky enough to be joined by a bipartisan group of experts in the criminal justice field and addiction services field in Lorain County last week. We had Sheriff Stamiti, we had Judge Miraldi, the head of the drug court, we had Judge Mihawk, Judge Bennett from the municipal courts, we had police chiefs from all over the county, we had Prosecutor Will, and we even had Tom Stuber, who is the head of the LACADA, who's been leading Lorain County Drug and Addiction Services for taking the lead on that, helping people for years. And they're all standing against issue 1. And the reason they're standing against it is because it's very dangerous, not only for our community, but for the drug addicted. Let me tell you why. First of all, it's a constitutional amendment. A constitutional amendment with this much policy is the wrong way to go. The Constitution is very hard to change, and that's a good thing. But when you put this much policy in it, that makes it very dangerous because guess what? Us policymakers, we don't get it right all the time. Sometimes we make a mistake and there's one word that we need to change, or a paragraph, or the entire law needs to be rewritten. And you can't do that with the constitutional amendment. You can do that with legislation. Also, we're trying to be smart on crime in the Ohio House, and we're working with the Judicial Conference, with the prosecutors, with defense attorneys, with addiction service providers, with the FOP. We're working with all experts across the board to be smart on crime here. And what we're doing is the carrot and stick method, and that works with drug possession and drug crimes. We hope it works, the carrot works all the time. Somebody goes into treatment, they successfully complete it, their case is dismissed, and then it is sealed and expunged. It won't be used against them. It's as if it never happened. That's great when that happens at a drug court, when they go into intervention in lieu and do that. But unfortunately, studies have shown that many people don't go into treatment voluntarily. They need that stick. They need that jail hanging over their head. And if issue 1 goes into effect, there is no chance of jail whatsoever, not even 1 day of jail for 24 months unless you have over 2 convictions. That's not overdoses, that's not charges, it's 2 convictions. That is taking away the stick, and that means that people aren't going to get the services, the addiction services they need. This is hurting people, it's hurting rehabilitation, it's going to cause a lot of deaths, a lot of overdose deaths. We've done a lot of great work in expanding intervention in lieu, the diversion program. We've done a lot of work in expanding the expungement law. We don't want to punish people, we want to help people and give them the help they need, and issue 1 will only hurt that. Thank you.
We have another issue on the ballot, a issue much closer to home, and that is the issue 14. It's an additional levy for 0.3 mils, 5 years, dealing with health or social services, hospitalization, and health. And we're going to begin this particular statement with the against position. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Kristen Hill from Citizens for a Better Lorain County.
There is a drug overdose problem in Lorain County, but this brand new tax levy, issue 14, is not the solution. We encourage you to vote no on issue 14 for these 3 reasons. Number 1, the median household income in Lorain County went down as reported recently by the Census Bureau. Number 2, property values have increased this year per the auditor, which will increase property taxes and put more money in the county coffers without this brand new tax levy. Property tax across the county is 52% higher today than 10 years ago. Number 3, county commissioners imposed a sales tax increase last year and have been collecting $10 million each year, even though they claimed a need for $5 million to offset a budget shortage. Where is the extra $5 million collected per year? With lower income, higher property taxes already, And the extra $5 million per year, we cannot afford this brand-new tax, issue 14. You should also know that there is no agreed-upon and signed plan for use of these tax dollars if they are collected. On November 6th, please vote no on issue 14.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hill. And now speaking for issue 14 is Mr. Jose Flores from the Recovery One Speakers Bureau.
Good evening. My name is Jose Flores. I'm the Associate Director of Community Education and Prevention Services for the Licata Way. I'm here tonight to talk to you about issue 14. Issue 14, of course, is a tax levy. It's going to raise $2 million annually to help fund the Recovery One facility. Recovery One is designed as a one-stop treatment facility to treat those with addictions. Recovery One project is a collaboration of local nonprofit organizations that specialize in treatment of behavioral health and addiction disorders. The facility will be run by recovery professionals from these nonprofit agencies in Lorain County. Issue 14 will provide the funding needed to fill gaps in the treatment services of Lorain County. These funds will be designated solely for the support and operation of Recovery One facility. The cost of issue 14 will be $10.50 a year. That $10.50 a year comes out to less than 88 cents a month to help fight the opioid epidemic that is devastating our communities and our families. Currently, across the state of Ohio, there's been an upswing of accidental overdose deaths related to fentanyl and carfentanil. I mention this to illustrate the fact that this isn't going away. This problem still needs to be solved. The Recovery One facility will provide men and women struggling with the disease of addiction access to detox services, which have not been available in Lorain County since 1997. Recovery One will provide inpatient residential treatment services for men and provide them with access to mental health care and other support services that they need while they're engaged in treatment for their addiction. Residential treatment services have not been available for men in Lorain County for over 10 years. Right now, in Lorain County, there are more people in need of treatment for the disease of addiction than ever before. 75% of child placements by the Department of Children's Services are due to drug-related issues. Let's help get these parents treatment and help get these families reunited. This is a community crisis, and we need to deal with this as a community. Please help us save lives, reunite families, and strengthen our community by voting yes on issue 14.
Thank you very much, Mr. Flores. Okay, so now we're getting ready to delve into our first race, the Lorain County Auditor's race, which the incumbent is Craig Snodgrass, who is Democrat, and his opposition and candidate from the Libertarian Party will be Mike Duran. So we're going to begin the questioning, and we're going to start with an opening statement from Mr. Snodgrass.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Coalition for Hispanic, Latino Issues and Programs for hosting tonight's forum. My name is Craig Snodgrass, your Lorain County Auditor, a position I have held for the past 6 years. Overall, I have been in the office for more than 24 years and have nearly 3 decades of professional financial experience. I'm a certified public accountant and certified government financial manager. I also serve as the Secretary-Treasurer of the Northeast Ohio County Auditors Association. I'm a graduate of Walsh College with a bachelor's degree majoring in accounting. I have also served 7 years on the Lorain City Council representing the 8th Ward. I would also like to note and thank the AFL-CIO, UAW CAP Council, and the Chronicle Telegram for their endorsements in my bid for re-election to Lorain County Auditor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Doran.
Hello, everyone. I am Mike Duran. I'm also running for County Auditor. I decided to run for this position as hold on. I decided to run for this position because I'd like to see more transparency in county government, a little bit more accountability and those types of things. One of the major things that I like to say that makes me stand out is that I'm not a member of the of the major parties that are actually running the county. So if something comes up here or there, I don't have anybody who I have to hold, who I owe anything to, because I don't have a big party or big money or anything like that behind me.
Thank you. We're going to move into the question portion. We're going to start with you, Mr. Duran. The first question is going to be, from a financial perspective, what is the biggest barrier to Lorain County becoming a prospering county? What is our best chance for overcoming this barrier?
From a financial perspective, the taxes are, with our, basically we could overcome the barriers by helping provide incentives and those types of things to people, for businesses to bringing in. Some of those could be tax incentives and various things like that, because a lot of reasons people won't bring a business or something like that to an area is because they believe that the taxes are too high or it's not going to be beneficial for them. So what we can do in a financial perspective is try and get some legislation that will help bring those people into the county more, make the county more attractive to those types of people.
Thank you. Mr. Snodgrass, same question. From a financial perspective, what is the biggest barrier to Lorain County becoming a prospering county, and what is the best chance for overcoming this barrier?
Well, again, based on our 2018 reappraisal, it would seem like the county has certainly turned the corner from our 2009, 10, 11 recession. Again, we always want to do better. We want to continue to attract businesses. Historically, or actually if you look at our neighboring counties, our tax rates are much lower. Our sales tax is still one of the lowest in the state. So there's a lot of things to attract businesses. I try to do that as much as I can with my website. I get calls all over the country from different businesses looking to relocate to Lorain County, and I try to emphasize the good things that are going on. Again, we are continuing to struggle. We always are going to have a little bit of a battle there, but it does look like Lorain County has turned the corner.
Thank you, Mr. Snodgrass. We'll begin with you for the second question. Are there any circumstances where a county auditor would publicly oppose a levy being placed on the ballot?
Well, again, there are statutory duties of the county auditor and the Budget Commission to actually certify the levies. And those things we cannot avoid. However, we are entitled to our opinions as well. And again, the auditor's office is a great source of all the financial information within the county. And if there was some prohibitions or some issues that do arise, which do come up from time to time, I certainly would be in line to oppose such a proposal. However, again, there are statutory duties that we must have, but again, I've not lost my voice also as a citizen of Lorain County and would voice that if needed.
Thank you, Mrs. Snodgrass. Mrs. Duran, same question. If elected, are there any circumstances where you as county auditor would publicly oppose a levy being placed on the ballot?
So the way I heard the question was, would you publicly oppose the levy being put onto the ballot? The answer to that is no, I would not oppose the voters' rights to be able to put something on the ballot. On the other way the question could be taken is, would you oppose something that is on the ballot? And if there's something that's on the ballot I felt that it strongly affected things, I would let people know my position on it.
Thank you. The final question will be asked by Ms. Marcano.
Okay, I'll be starting with Mr. Duran for this one. In your opinion, at what point is Lorain County taxpayer taxed enough?
So, as libertarian, we don't believe in as much taxes as everybody else does. So I would like to say at this point, we are taxed enough. So the question then comes, what about the different services and things like that that are going on? So if we are taxed enough, we have to find, we still have to find that money somewhere, some here or there or some other way. So my idea on that, whether they would be, when we would be taxed enough, is ultimately that we are already taxed enough, and that we generally have wasteful spending, and that's a big part of, the auditor's office would be looking into and seeing if we can point out and get the legislators to change whatever legislation may be wasteful spending.
Same question for you, Mr. Sungrass. In your opinion, at what point is the Lorain County taxpayer taxed enough?
Yes, I've heard this question time and time again. I'm not sure I've ever met anybody that really enjoys paying taxes, myself included. However, that is the process that we have been given by the state legislators. Now, what I can do as county auditor is to ensure that there's a fair and equitable distribution of the tax monies as well as the valuations. Again, everybody just pay your fair share. And I've not been shy about taking on taxpayers who want to avoid that. And again, that's what I can do as county auditor, is to try to just ensure that everybody just pays what they owe. Not anything more, not less. Thank you.
Okay, and now with your closing statement, starting with you, Mr. Sungrass.
Again, I would like to thank Chip for hosting this evening's forum and those in attendance. It's very clear I have the experience and proven track record to continue to serve the citizens of Lorain County. For the past 6 years as auditor and for more than 24 years overall in the auditor's office, I have dedicated my life to public service. My office has been nationally recognized for our financial reporting, has received clean audits from the state auditor's office, and my geographic information system, or mapping system, has received statewide recognition for its enterprise-wide products, to name a few honors. Under my leadership, we will continue to strive for excellence. I would like to thank everyone for your past support and humbly ask for your continued support and your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Mr. Duran, your closing statements?
I would like to be the auditor for the people. I would like to earn your votes. Ultimately, on November 6th, you guys will have the choice. This office is in charge of overseeing the tax dollars. Ultimately, libertarians don't like to pay taxes. I mean, not pay taxes, don't like to have taxes. So ultimately, I believe that as being libertarian, who would you rather have looking over your tax money?
We want to thank you both for coming today and for speaking with the viewing audience, and we wish you both luck in November. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We're now going to move into the second race on our agenda, which is the Congressional 4th District. We invite Ms. Janet Garrett up on the stage. We did send an invitation, but we received no response from Mr. Jordan. So we're still going to pose the questions to Ms. Garrett.
Thank you for coming, Ms. Garrett. Before we get started, you have your 1-minute opening statement.
I would like to thank Chip for having me. I am here because I am running for U.S. House of Representatives in Ohio's 4th Congressional District because I am tired of our representatives acting like chambermaids to the rich. We need government for and by the people. I am a former public school teacher, so who do you think my heart is with? My heart is with you. I served as a Peace Corps volunteer. I taught as a teacher for 35 years in the public schools, preparing children for their future. And now I'm running for office to make sure they have one. I was on the executive council of my union for 20 of those years, and I was at the negotiating table many, many times. And what I learned from that experience is that when you are negotiating with someone on the opposite side from you, you go in with what you want and you come back with what you can live with. And that is the art of negotiating and working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett. Starting your first question. Please share your thoughts on the current national effort by students to impact the laws related to guns in this country.
Well, I would like to start by saying I am a gun owner. I have watched the Parkland students in their inspiring activism. I have talked with other gun owners, and just about everyone I have talked to agrees that there are many things that we can and should be doing. It's not just about school safety, it's about the public safety. And there are many things we can do. And I applaud the efforts of the Parkland students and their leadership. And we need to start, I believe, with universal background checks and eliminating the gun show loophole.
Thank you very much, Ms. Garrett. Second question. What do you feel that it will take for the two dominant parties of the United States to work together to resolve problems facing our country? Is that even possible again?
Thank you for that question. That's something I talk about all the time. We need new leadership. That's the problem. I am running as a Democrat, but I want you to know that I'm not happy with the leadership on either side of the parties. I think we need people who are interested in working together and listening to each other and trying to move the interests of the people forward. There are many issues that we face. The opioid epidemic, our educational system seriously needs to be improved. We need health care for all of our citizens, good quality health care that's affordable for all of our citizens, and our workers need a raise. And the only way those things are going to happen is if we have new leadership that is going to address the issues that are facing the American people today.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett. And for your last and final question, please share your thoughts on the general incivility we see daily on the national scene with office holders attacking and disrespecting each other.
That's pretty related to the question that I just answered. We can disagree with each other without being disagreeable. I think we need to talk to each other. We need to listen to each other. We need to find the common ground. I believe there's way more that unites us than divides us in this country. And we all love our children. We all love our families. We all want an opportunity to have a decent job and a decent life and retire with dignity. And I don't think that's too much to ask for. So that's what we all should be working towards.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett. As you pointed out, that the question that we just asked you was very similar to the first one, so
Right.
Since your opponent is not here, we'd like to ask you one more question.
Thank you.
What is your position on one or more of these immigration issues? Wall or no wall? Deportations, under what conditions? And separating families caught entering this country illegally. You may pick one, or you may pick more than one. Please give us your thoughts.
I have thought deeply about these questions, and I look at the world, and I see that there is almost nowhere in the world where there is a wall separating borders. So I think that this wall is very divisive. I also think that it is going to be extremely, extremely expensive. And if we actually looked at our national priorities and we were going to spend that amount of money, would that be really the highest priority? I don't think so. As far as deporting people, our president originally said that he was going to be deporting criminals, and I completely supported that. I don't think that that's been the priority, though, and so I want to say that after the raid on the COSAR, I came to join El Centro, and they called into a family that was in hiding and was terrified. And there was a little girl who was talking, and she was crying so hard that we couldn't understand what she was saying, and she was begging for help. It was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever witnessed. And I don't think that's who we are as a nation. I don't think that separating families is who we are as a nation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Garrett. Your closing statements, please.
At the end of June, our fundraising went through the roof when my opponent, Jim Jordan, went on the attack of Rod Rosenstein on national television. There were people all over the country who went looking for who was his opponent to support me. For the first time, we have a real chance in an extremely gerrymandered district to unseat him. It all comes down to voter turnout. So I really urge you to come out and vote. I hope that you will vote for me, but I think it's very critical that every citizen make the effort to vote. I want to remind you that in March, there was an election in Virginia in which there was actually a tie. So your vote could actually be a tiebreaker. If you are afraid, vote. If you are demoralized, vote. If you want a better country, vote. It is critical. Thank you very much.
Ms. Garrett, thank you so much for, one, running for office, and two, for spending some time here with the community and letting us know how you feel and why you're running. We thank you very much. We're going to take a short commercial break, and then we're going to move into the commissioner's race.
The Warriors to Work program makes it possible for wounded warriors and their families to build new lives together.
When my dad left, I was like this big, but now I'm like this big. My dad got a master's degree in human resources.
Thanks to Warriors to Work that my dad has a terrific job.
The Wounded Warrior Project helps him by, giving him another start.
Now that my dad's home, I get a lot more hugs.
I'm really proud of him.
Find out more about Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home, the brave.
Welcome back, and now we will begin our commissioner's race. Thank you, Mr. Lundy and Mr. Cerrone, for joining us. You will both each get 1 minute of opening statements, and Mr. Lundy, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Chip for hosting this event this evening. I want to start by stating and making very clear that I value and embrace diversity. Diversity makes our community stronger. I also believe that we must work together to make our community a better place for our families. As a former state rep and now as a commissioner, I've worked with local leaders here and across this county. And we have worked together, also across party lines, so that we can grow jobs and retrain workers. We've worked together to remove drug houses from our neighborhoods. We've also worked together to help those battling addiction. And we've worked together to plan a future for our lakefront and to keep our lake healthy. I've done this by working together and across party lines. I believe in putting people ahead of politics. Working together, we are stronger. I'm Matt Lundy. I'm running for re-election, and I'm asking for your support on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lundy and Mr. Cerrone.
Hi, everyone. I want to thank the coalition also and the moderators. I'm just thrilled and honored to be here and to share my vision for Lorain County. I want to start out by saying I agree with Mr. Lundy that family and community is very important. So I'd like to use my opening time to tell you about my family. I'm a proud father of 4 children. They tragically lost their mother 9 years ago. And we come from a family of service. My daughter is a registered nurse. My 2 sons are currently serving in the military. One's in the Coast Guard, one's in the Army. And my 3rd son is an Army veteran and is currently serving the citizens of Parma as a police officer. So, like my kids, I feel like I have a lot to offer with Lorain County and to be of service to the citizens here. And I appreciate the opportunity to share my vision for Lorain County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cerrone. We'll start the questioning with you. The first question is, first a statement. Even though it is not, Lorain has been listed on several websites as a sanctuary city. We're interested in what is your position on sanctuary cities?
Sure. Actually, I'm a lifelong resident of Lorain, and I am sympathetic, certainly sympathetic to those seeking asylum. I think everybody's situation is different, and that needs to be taken into account. However, there are ways to change rules and laws, and we do that through legislation. Any city that is not following the laws and rules that have been set up, I believe, is in grave danger, not only losing funding from the federal government, but just being an illegitimate example and model for law-abiding citizens. So I do not support sanctuary cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cerrone. Mr. Lundy, same question.
Sure. I would remind everybody, and in this room, I'm sure we're all proud of our family roots. We are a nation of immigrants. We should never forget that. It's very sad how people try to politicize immigration in this country. You know, people come here looking for an opportunity, much like my great-grandparents before me. Also, it's a local decision as to what communities want to do. And certainly trying to withhold any type of federal funding from the communities is clearly an extremist point of view and unreasonable. As county commissioners, we spoke up about DACA. We were very concerned about how the federal government was handling that. These are individuals who came here as children with their parents. I don't know anybody who says when your parents say, get a move on, you don't follow. They have every right to be in this country and to make a better life for themselves. And we also saw the horrible events of children being separated from their parents. That should never be allowed to happen in this country or any country or under any circumstances whatsoever. I spoke up and stood up and spoke out against that as well.
Thank you. For your next question, every day 8 people die in Ohio due to accidental overdoses from heroin, prescription medications, and other drugs. Lorain County is not immune to this devastating epidemic. If you are elected and or re-elected to office, what specific steps would you take to contribute to the reduction of overdose deaths in Lorain County? Starting with you, Mr. Lundy.
Thank you. We've started work on that issue, and that's work that will be a lengthy process. It's our Recovery One project that we're working on in the county. We brought together LACADA, we brought together the Mental Health Board, the Nord Family Foundation, the county commissioners, the ADIS board, all working together on this initiative so that we have recovery beds in the county, something we haven't had since the 1970s. We worked in a bipartisan fashion with our legislators in Columbus. Thank you to them. I see them here tonight to bring funding to get underway with the first phase of the initiative. The next phase of the initiative is certainly the issue 14 question that is going before the voters. Our county's having a negative impact of $200 million a year because of this epidemic. We lost 132 people last year. We have 75% of our children in this county going into adoption. because their parents are battling substance abuse. We need to get people back on their feet, back to their families, back to work. And while I'm here, I'm going to encourage you to support issue 14. It's an important investment for our families and for the future of this county.
Thank you. Same question for you, Mr. Saron. Saron.
Yes, I know there's been work done to target prescription drug manufacturers and doctors, and I think that's appropriate. That has helped to reduce the opioid epidemic in the county and nationwide, actually. As far as issue 14 goes and a recovery facility, it is needed, according to the experts in addiction services in the county. However, I am not in favor of the commissioners spearheading that project. I am in favor of the experts, the Alcohol Drug Addiction Services Board, to be in the driver's seat for that with support from the commissioners. I'm also not confident that the Golden Acres facility that's being targeted for use is a viable facility, plus the way other facilities have been financed around the county hasn't given me a lot of confidence. And it's just a poor time for another tax levy on the ballot with, as the auditor Snodgrass said, valuations skyrocketing this year to have another tax levy for taxpayers to fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cerrone. And for your final question, starting with you, Mr. Cerrone, would be, Lorain County's transportation services still fall short of the needs of Lorain County citizens. If elected, what will you do to improve a situation that disproportionately affects the working poor of our community?
Well, actually, I rode the transit this summer for a morning and just talked to the riders and the drivers, and they're in unison. They said they need more routes to be part of the transit system. It was also the number one thing that people brought up at the candidates forum in Oberlin last week. So definitely something needs to be done. The current commissioners have had 4 years to work on that problem, and it's gone nowhere. It was on the 2016 sales tax. Part of that funding was to go to transits, and after the levy failed and it was pushed through by the commissioners, it suddenly disappeared off the levy. The money going to transit instead went to the general fund of the commissioners. So there's some work to be done there. I would also look at other counties that are successfully using a transit system and pick their brains and see what we can do in Lorain County to improve our transit system here in the county.
Thank you, Mr. Cerrone. Mr. Lundy, same question. If Lorain County's transportation services still fall short of the needs of Lorain County citizens, if re-elected, what will you do to improve a situation that disproportionately affects the working poor of our community?
Transit is very important. It's an economic development issue. I can tell you that we went before the NOACA board and received an $85,000 grant so that we could take a look at how to improve our transit system in the county. That grant came back and will be official here shortly. The report will be basically talking about operations under existing budget, which is very limited. Also, what we can do in the way of expanding services. It's important to point out that this problem really starts at the state level. We only spend 63 cents per person on transit in Ohio. Neighboring states spend $8, $10, $11, $15 on transit. So the problem really begins there. Questions have been put before the voters in the past. The voters, unfortunately, have consistently voted against it. We are not giving up on transit. We're going to continue to find ways to move transit forward. It's too critical to our future and our economic development. It's a very important social justice issue for this county.
Thank you, Mr. Lundy. And now you will both have 1 minute of closing statements, starting with you, Mr. Lundy.
Well, thank you, Chip, for hosting this event here this evening. You know, when you get into public service, you have to ask yourself whether you're going to be someone who builds bridges or blows up bridges. And I believe I'm a bridge builder. That means that I believe in working together with others. It's easy to say no. It's more difficult to find a solution. I've been working together with others to grow jobs and train workers, ridding our neighborhoods of our drug houses, working with families to help get our loved ones off of drugs, back to their families, back to work. And I stand up and speak out when I see that our working families are under attack. I support collective bargaining, and I oppose right to work in Ohio. I will always put our families first. We need to replace confrontation with conversation. To bring about positive change, it requires that we work together. I'm Matt Lundy. I'm asking for your support for re-election on November 6th because I believe that we are stronger when we work together.
Thank you, Mr. Lundy. Mr. Cerrone, your 1 minute.
Well, in my 30 years of teaching, I learned a lot of skills about collaborating, working together, problem solving. I think I would bring these to the commissioner position. I also, for financial help, I think our commissioners are overwhelmed with the budget that they have and all the projects going on. I could bring some sanity to that with handling finances. My own campaign, we have only spent $10,000, which is unheard of in a campaign, because we are watching our money. Also, if you want additional information, I have a website, Cerrone 4 Commissioner. Take a look at that, get more information. I have also been active in the letters to the editor on the Chronicle Telegram. You can get, trying to get my message out there in some of the positions I have. And do you know what today is, everybody? First day of early voting, so get out and vote. I appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
We would like to thank you both for joining us, and now we will take a short break as we get ready for the next race.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're now going to have here candidates for the Congressional 9th District. We were informed by Congresswoman Kapner's office that she would not be able to be here tonight, but we are very happy to have Mr. Stephen W. Krause from the Republican Party and Mr. Mackenzie Lewandowski. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And he is a write-in candidate for this office. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you. And we're going to begin with opening statements. Mr. Krause, we'll begin with you.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody here. I'd like to thank Chip for having us today. This is a wonderful format, and I just appreciate your time. My name is Steve Krause. I hail from Sandusky, Ohio, which is in the heart of the middle of the district of the 9th Congressional District. It stretches from Toledo to Cleveland. And has anybody ever been to Cedar Point? Roller coaster capital? That's where I live. Anyways, I'm 11-year active duty Air Force veteran, 7-year contractor to the United States Air Force. I traveled all around the world with special forces. I was in the first Gulf War. I have an engineering degree. I worked in coal-fired power plants, and I know what it's like to work hard and try. My father gave me very good work ethics with my grandfather about just doing your best. I believe in doing what is right. I believe in telling the truth. And my motto, and I hope each and every one of you would take a sign tonight, is remember in November, vote Krause for the House. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krause. Mr. Lewandowski.
Steve sounds pretty good. My name is Mackenzie Lewandowski. You can call me Mackenzie Levy, or you can just write Mackenzie on the form on District Number 9. I currently live in Lakewood, which is a suburb of Cleveland, where I operate a volunteer public safety task force called the Order of the City. We've been working against the radical left groups that have been popping up in various protest locations. I've been in Ohio for the past 4 years. Before that, I was in Northern California, where I was the chairman of the Downtown Street Issue and Transient Committee, where I worked to manage that community. That's what I do. I problem solve. I've been here as a community servant to the communities that I live in, whether they like it or not. And I'm going to keep doing those things. Now I've seen that what I can do for my community is to go to the next level, and here I am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewandowski. We're going to begin the questioning with you, sir. And our question to you is this. The general incivility that appears to be the current standard in Washington at this time is of great concern to the citizens all over this country. Demonstrate that you know enough about your opponents to say something positive about him, her, or them.
I would agree with this question that the incivility is not just in Washington, but it's spread into our communities here in Northeast Ohio as well and everywhere throughout the country. Here on stage, and really I don't have anything negative to say about my opponent. In just hearing his accolades, I have a lot of personal, I guess, honor in sitting here next to him after having heard what he has done as far as the military is concerned.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kraus, same question.
Well, I can also say I don't know my opponent very well, but he wears great chainmail. I mean, that is awesome, and it's real too. So that's pretty cool. And Marcy, who's not here today, she's the empty chair. Unfortunately, she didn't arrive to debate, but I know Marcy because in 2012 I ran for this office, and I had some pictures taken with her. And then just recently in 2016, or actually just back in August 2018, I had some more pictures. So what I'd say nice about Marcy is she's always ready for a photo op.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. For your next question, what is your position on one or more of these immigration issues, wall or no wall, deportations, and separating families caught entering this country illegally?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking that. One of the things, being a military member, that I'm very concerned about is security for our country. If we don't have language, border, and culture, we won't be a sovereign nation anymore. And the wall is important because we lock our doors at night. We secure our cars. Why should we not be securing our borders? We need immigration, and I support legal immigration. But we shouldn't have open borders where people can just come in and we don't know who these people are. We have a lake up here, and I know you can't build a wall on a lake, but we need to be able to secure our country and know who's here legally. Thank you.
Same question, Mr. Lewandowski.
I believe the open borders agenda is meant to destabilize our country and make it so that we are less sovereign. The wall and the deportations, those are solutions to the problems that we're facing with the illegal drugs and the guns that are coming into our country and into our communities here in Northeast Ohio. That's the problems we're trying to solve, and these are the solutions that they're offering. Being a medieval reenactor of the Crusades, I do appreciate fortifications. They do the work that humans do without having humans there. I've seen the condition of the border. I've seen that it's open, that there's a lot of places where people, not just families, but armed men who seem to be well organized and meaning harm to our country are passing through. That is a problem. So these solutions are not up to me yet. When they are, I'll be able to present some of my own as far as what we can do to solve these things. But yes, the poppy plant is not grown in America. That's the plant that creates heroin. So if we can get to the bottom of where that's coming from, we can stop the heroin.
Thank you, Mr. Lewandowski. For your third and final question, we will start with you. And the question is, over the past few weeks, the country has been entranced by the Kavanaugh hearings. Do you feel that what needed to be investigated to appoint an individual to the highest court in the land was investigated properly? Why or why not?
I was embarrassed by what happened just because this sort of accusation should have came at a much lower level where it wouldn't have been broadcast on our global stage in such a way. I was also disappointed in that many of the women who were brave enough to come out and share their stories and experiences seemed to be used in a manipulative way by the media and by the people who were pushing this agenda, and it turned into just another, what appeared to be a paid protest sort of scene again. I was really disappointed in the whole thing.
Thank you. And same question to you, Mr. Kraus. Over the past few weeks, the country has been entranced by the Kavanaugh hearings. Do you feel that what needed to be investigated to appoint an individual to the highest court in the land was investigated properly? Why or why not?
That's a great question, and I'm going to answer it two ways. First, he went through 7 FBI background checks. I had a secret security clearance when I was in the military. It's very thorough. I think that the FBI did their job, and I trust what they did not find. Secondly, the problem that we have, and it's on some of these other questions that you didn't ask me, but it's on the incivility up there in Washington, D.C. And I think the way to handle incivility, especially in the political arena, and I've had a little experience of this down in Columbus, is we need term limits. These people go up there and they spend 30, 40 years, they build fiefdoms to themselves, kingdoms to themselves. And these people, and we saw it in the Senate, on both sides of the aisle, they've been there forever, they have so much power, they don't care what they say and do, and they really don't care what you and I think. That's a problem. We should have term limits. We have them in Columbus. We should have them in Washington, D.C. We should stop the lifetime salaries, and we need to rotate these people out of Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you. Now you will both get 1-minute closing remarks. Mr. Kraus, we'll start with you.
I would like to take just a moment and talk about the opioids. Over 4,000 people have died from opioid overdose in Ohio every year. Last year, we lost over 1,000. We lost over 1,000 people in our district alone. These black crosses represent that 1,000 people. Over 17,000 people per year are arrested for possession of marijuana in Ohio. They face a judicial system that focuses on nonviolent crimes while serious crimes go unresolved. They are represented by the white crosses. Right here. Nearly every one of us knows someone who's been hurt by this side of the drug war. They are represented by these red crosses. The war on drugs has failed. The amount of money we spend has gone up, the number of people incarcerated has gone up, and the number of deaths has gone up. Whether we are separating families at the border because they are fleeing drug violence in Central America, or we are separating them in the morgue, the war on drugs is insanity. Whenever we ask about the drug war, the answer is lock them up and make everything illegal. That is not working. I will work with you all. I will hold town hall meetings. I will meet with you to find better solutions. But we have to start and ask the right questions. I lost a brother to opioid abuse, and I have been through the judicial system. Please, if you elect me, I will implement solutions that will provide relief for victims on both sides of the failed war on drugs in the 9th District. Thank you. Remember in November, vote Kraus for the House. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. Mr. Lewandowski, we will extend your time, so you will have 2 minutes for your closing remarks.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me here tonight and for giving me this platform to speak. Again, my name is Mackenzie Lewandowski, Mackenzie Levy, just write in Mackenzie. Either way, I'll continue to do what I've been doing, which is fight against the radical left. I've been on the front lines, literally, against Antifa and the black masked groups that have been coming into your communities to cause chaos. So I will keep fighting against that, but I'm also fighting against things that I can't even talk about here because you'd call me a conspiracy theorist. There are big problems that are going on in our global communities that we aren't allowed to talk about because they're too sensitive. I am doing my best to fight against those things that are combative to our health and long-term community. So if you want to know more about me or if I can help you in any way in your communities as a candidate or just as myself as a good knight, please let me know. I'm available to you. Thank you again for having me here.
Gentlemen, thank you both for being with us tonight. When we come back, we'll be covering the judges' race for the Court of Common Pleas. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're now covering the race for the judge of the Court of Common Pleas. The incumbent currently in that office is Judge John Maraldi, and his opponent during this November election will be Attorney Berkey Merrill. We'd like to welcome you both. And we're going to begin with your opening statement. We'll begin with Judge Maraldi.
Thank you. I'm Judge John Maraldi, and I am seeking re-election to the Lorain County Court of Common Pleas. I have served the county as a trial judge for the past 6 years, and I have the experience of handling thousands of cases, including criminal felony cases, capital murder cases, and civil litigation. In response to the opioid crisis, I created and preside over the only drug treatment court in the General Division of Lorain County. Our drug court is saving lives because it's breaking the cycle of addiction. It saves money because people who have been rehabilitated are working and no longer in the criminal justice center. I am honored to be the only judicial candidate to receive the highest rating from member lawyers within the Lorain County Bar Association. This blind survey asked lawyers to rate judicial candidates in the area of legal capability, judicial temperament, integrity, and character. Lorain County deserves the highest rated and most qualified person as judge, and that's why I ask for your vote for re-election on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Attorney Berkey Merrill, your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Attorney Jennifer Berkey Merrill, and I'm running for Lorain County Court of Common Pleas. I'm married to Douglas Merrill and have 2 beautiful children. I am a lifelong resident of Lorain County. I am also a product of Lorain City School System. I attended Lorain High and then graduated from Southview High School. After that, I attended Ohio State University, where I got a Bachelor of Science, and then law school at Capital University. After law school, I opened my own legal practice and have been practicing for 14 years, every day in the court system. I've done over 2,000 cases in the Lorain County Justice Center alone. That's not including the municipal courts or any of the surrounding counties. I was former acting judge at the Elyria Municipal Court, and I am qualified to take on the highest level of felonies at the trial level. I have criminal trial experience. I have first-hand dealings on a daily basis with individuals who are experiencing this opioid crisis. I bring a fresh, new perspective to the bench, and I ask for your vote for Lorain County Common Pleas Judge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney Berkey Merrill. And we'll begin the questions. And the first question will be to you, Attorney Berkey Merrill. What is the role of a judge in ensuring that certified and qualified interpreters are available to applicable defendants in court cases? And as a judge, how will you ensure that Rule 88 of the Ohio Supreme Court is complied with in your court?
Thank you for that question. As in Lorain County, we know it's a very diverse population. I deal with this almost on a daily basis with individuals who have family members who help them interpret. And then again, when you go up to the courts, who is going to interpret for these individuals? It is the judge's responsibility to have the qualified interpreters. And we do a very good job at that. The problem is what happens when an attorney needs to meet with these clients outside to prepare for trial or to prepare for a hearing or to go over the evidence. That is severely lacking, and that is something as judge I would like to look into. It's not only important to have those interpreters at court as we do today, but to prepare. What if a person is incarcerated? How do we, as individuals who do not speak their language, adequately represent these individuals without interpreters present? That is something I would most definitely address. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Maraldi, same question.
Well, in the General Division, we currently retain a full-time Spanish language interpreter. Her name is Isabel Farina. Just last week, I had a trial where neither the defendant nor any of the witnesses spoke English. We had Isabel and Dina Hernandez both in the courtroom for a day and a half interpreting on behalf of these defendants. So it's extremely important that this communication be provided, this ability to communicate be provided. This interpreter was present during any plea discussions so that the attorney, defense attorney, could speak with the defendant. In addition, if the defendant is indigent, the court can pay for the interpreter upon request. I always make sure that my bailiff knows before we go into the courtroom if we're going to need an interpreter, because a defendant, a witness, does not speak English. So it's critically important, and for the last 6 years, I've ensured that people who don't speak English get a fair shake in my courtroom through the use of a full-time hired interpreter.
Thank you. For your second question, starting with you, Judge Maraldi. As a judge, what action would you take if you realize that a defense or prosecuting attorney is mostly unprepared in his or her defense or prosecution of a defendant?
So the question has to do with if the prosecutor or the defense attorney is not prepared. If the prosecutor is not prepared, that case gets dismissed. The prosecutor has the burden of proof, proving each and every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. As a judge, you have to look out for the defendant. If the defendant is being represented by someone who's not qualified, you want to address that early, at the arraignment, meaning the first appearance of the lawyer on behalf of the client. We have qualifications that are necessary for people who are appointed to represent defendants who do not have the financial ability to pay for an attorney. If during a proceeding you see that the defense lawyer is failing, you stop the trial, you continue the trial, you appoint new defense counsel. I've done it.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Attorney Berkey Merrill.
Thank you. Well, I think it's important for the state of Ohio and the defense to have a voice. What I would do is remove both counsel, the prosecution and the defense, into chambers, and I would inquire. I would not make a judgment without actually getting to the facts. We all have personal lives, and I will inquire as to why people are not prepared. State, why are you not prepared to go forward? Defense counsel, why are you not prepared? After hearing their reasoning why, that is when I would make my decision. If defense counsel is not prepared, I would entertain a motion for a continuance based on securing the rights of the defendant. If the prosecution is not prepared, depending on their reason, I would give them that same privilege as I did defense. I will treat everybody equally. So I believe that it's important for everybody to be prepared for this justice system to work. And if there's adequate reasons, I would continue the case. If there's not adequate reasons, I would address it at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. And for your final question, and we will start with you, Attorney Berkey Merrill. Accessible and appropriate mental health treatment for all individuals in need are major health goals in Lorain County. What role can a judge play in ensuring that mental health variables are identified and considered during trials and sentencing phases?
Mental health has become increasingly important. I have had an increase in the amount of clients that I have represented that have mental health issues. It is a task, it is draining, and I do not feel that the judges or the attorneys or all the time have the resources or have the knowledge to address these appropriately. As a judge, I would make sure I would have pretrials on the record, or I would make sure that the individual is comprehending what is going on each day, especially if it is a trial. These competency and NGI reports come back that the individuals are competent or they understand what happened or the wrongfulness of their actions. As defense counsel, as I talk to these individuals, I cannot adequately represent them. They do not express to me a defense. They cannot understand what I'm talking about half of the time. We have to ensure that they are properly medicated, that when we are doing important court proceedings, that they are understanding what is happening and what events are taking place. As judge, I will ensure that they're comprehending on every step of the procedure. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Maraldi, excuse me. Same question. Accessible and appropriate mental health treatment for all individuals in need are major health goals in Lorain County. What role can a judge play in ensuring that mental health variables are identified and considered during trials and sentencing phases?
So generally, a mental health condition of a defendant will be brought to the attention of the court by their counsel or even by the prosecutor. If I'm in the courtroom and I notice that a defendant does have some mental health issues, I will ask if a forensic psychological evaluation has been done to determine whether or not this defendant is competent to stand trial or knows the wrongfulness of his act. As a judge, you have to make sure that the defendant understands. A plea of guilty cannot be taken unless the defendant understands and voluntarily enters that plea. I'm excited to announce that in Lorain County, through the hard work of Judge James Maraldi and Judge Chris Cook, they are crucial members of the Stepping Up Initiative, which is a mental health initiative so that more resources with respect to mental health are available to the courts to help those defendants who come before us with these types of problems.
Thank you. Now you both will get 1 minute of closing remarks. Judge Maraldi, we will start with you.
Thank you to CHIPS for tonight. I spent 32 years as a judge, as a lawyer, 6 of those as a judge, and I've served this county as a trial court judge. I've listened during those years and I've cared. I'm the only county judge that handles 3 full dockets. I handle a full criminal docket, I handle a full civil docket, and I handle the drug treatment court. I created that court to address the pressing needs of people who come before the court system and who are addicted to opiates. When I first ran in 2012, I received the highest rating from the Lorain County Bar Association attorneys. This spring, as a judge, after 6 years, I again received the highest rating possible from the lawyers who deal with me on a daily basis. When the people that you work with think highly of you, that says something. Lorain County deserves the highest rated and most qualified person to continue serving as its trial judge. And that's why I ask for your vote for re-election on November 6th. Thank you.
And now Attorney Berkey Merrill, your 1 minute.
Thank you very much. I care and am very compassionate and passionate about this county and the people of the county. I've spent my life here. I have served the community for the past 14 years in private practice, and I have done criminal trials and criminal litigation. I have handled each day individuals who are addicted to drugs. I have listened to their parents on the phone beg me for them not to get out of jail because they're afraid they will pick up new charges or that they will overdose and pass away. I have personal hands-on experience with criminal trial work and criminals, and as a judge, I feel that is important. As a general practitioner, I have done criminal, civil protection orders, GAL. I'm very diverse in the areas of practice that I have achieved. I believe in diversity, and I believe that's what this bench needs. It needs a new perspective, it needs a fresh look. I believe that promotes innovation, and it'll promote solutions to the recidivism rate, to the mental health issues, and the opioid epidemic. So I ask for your vote on Election Day. Vote Jennifer Berkey Merrill for Lorain County Common Pleas Judge. Thank you.
Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to move into the congressional race for the 7th District. We did not receive a response from Bob Gibbs, but we are very grateful to have with us today his opponent, and that is Mr. Ken Harbaugh. Welcome, Mr. Harbaugh.
Thank you, Michael.
So we're going to begin, sir, with your opening statement. You have 1 minute to introduce yourself to everyone on camera there.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to the coalition. And most of all, thank you to all of you for coming. This is democracy made real. This is how we address the issues in our community, in our country, and it reminds me of an essential truth that I learned as a Navy pilot flying recon missions off of North Korea over the Middle East. And That is that in moments of crisis, Americans rise to the occasion. We come together. When I was leading those combat recon crews, we didn't care about each other's politics. We didn't care about the last names or the accents or where we were from. We banded together to get a mission done. When I served as president of Team Rubicon Global, a disaster relief organization that has helped retrain more than 50,000 veterans to deploy to disaster zones around the world, we didn't care about the politics. Because a hurricane doesn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. And I guarantee you, as the storm is bearing down on Florida, and as the people of the Carolinas are rebounding from Hurricane Florence, when the Team Rubicon members in those communities are literally plucking people off of the roofs of their two-story houses, they are not asking anybody who they voted for. Americans rise to the occasion in moments of crisis. We are living in a political crisis right now, and we are the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harbaugh. Starting off with your first question, rank the following in order of your personal beliefs: country, God, party, family, and explain your ranking.
Thank you. I would have to say God, country, family, and party. And I say that because values are foundational to me. And those are based in the way I was raised and in my faith. And when I turned 22 years old, I took those values and I took the lessons that my parents had taught me, and I raised my right hand and I joined the U.S. Navy and I swore an oath to the Constitution. And my country means everything to me, because that oath was not to a party. It certainly wasn't to any one individual. It was to the country. It was to support and defend the Constitution. So God for values, country, and then family, because I am a father and a husband and a devoted family man, and I love my family dearly. But the reason I joined the Navy and the reason I put country first is to fight for my family.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harbaugh. I will pose a second question. Should cultural competence have relevance to a sitting congresswoman or congressman? And if your answer is yes, are there any steps you would take to ensure that your staff and other applicable personnel are culturally competent when dealing with the community at large?
Of course. And I think it's too bad that in 2018, you still have to put that question to representatives. That question is about whether or not your representative is actually going to listen, is actually going to enter those communities and learn and be empathetic. And I think half of what's wrong, if not all of what's wrong with Congress today, is that we have representatives who have forgotten that oath of office, who have forgotten who they work for, and who take their power for granted, and who don't show up at events like this, who don't listen and who don't learn. And I think it starts at the top with the representative, but that is reflected, to the point of the question, Michael, in how you lead your staff, in who you bring to the team, in who you send out into the community to represent your values. And we have built a staff, those of you who have interacted with the Harbaugh campaign staff know what I'm talking about, that is not just empathetic, but embedded in the community, and I would continue that as your representative. Thank you.
Okay, and for your final question, suicide prevention and accessible mental health treatment for all individuals in need are major health goals in Lorain County. What are you going to do to support these goals and promote the mental well-being of all of your constituents?
Well, this one is deeply personal for me. This is not a political question. This is a personal one because as a veteran, especially as the leader of a disaster relief organization with tens of thousands of veterans in it, I have been on the front lines of our mental health crisis. And some of you may be familiar with the statistic 22 a day. 22 military veterans every day take their own lives. And it is because as a society, as communities, we have not prioritized mental health the way we need to. And I would submit to all of you here that we need to change our thinking and move away from calling it mental health and start calling it brain health. because the brain is an organ, just like a liver, just like a spleen. It can be damaged, it can break, but with the right attention, with the right research backing the medical protocols, it can be fixed. Thank you.
And Mr. Harbaugh, you now have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thank you. This election is ultimately about accountability, about showing up, about being a member of the community that you claim to represent. And if there is one request I could leave with you, and it is a request I make in every town hall that we've held, and we've held dozens of town halls across the district, over 100 public events in the last year alone, in the time that my opponent has held one public event. That request is, don't take my word for it, look at my record, look at my opponent's record, and make the choice based on that. I grew up in a military family, steeped in that tradition of service. When it was my turn, I joined the Navy. I raised my right hand and swore that oath. When I left the Navy, I took over a disaster relief organization that existed to help people on the worst days of their lives. And I see my run for Congress, and hopefully my service to you in Congress, as an extension of that lifetime of service. Thank you.
Mr. Harbaugh, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day to be here with us today, and we wish you luck in the upcoming election. Please stay with us as we move into the state senator's race for the 13th district. Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're here for the state senator for the 13th district, where the current office holder is Representative Nathan H. Manning from the Republican Party. We have Sharon, I am so sorry. That seat is completely up for grabs. Okay. So all three are vying for the position held by State Senator Gail Manning. So we welcome all three of you, and we're now going to get into that discussion and ask you a series of questions. And we're going to begin with the opening statement, and we'll begin with you, Ms. Suida.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate Chip's putting on this opportunity for all of us. Most of you know that I am the daughter of a 425 UAW auto worker born right here in Lorain, Ohio. My first political lessons were taught to me by my father sitting at our kitchen table. He had the union ballot card in front of me, and as I would look at that ballot card, he would explain to me why we were voting for those candidates and why we were Democrats. He taught me from an early age that the comparison was Democrats are representative of the people and Republicans are representative of business, and that's been my moral compass my entire life. I am the wife of a retired carpenter and veteran. I am the niece of a USS Indianapolis hero, and I'm a replica of the folks who live in this district. Thank you.
Thank you. Your opening statement, Mr. Taft.
Good evening. I'm Homer Taft, and I'm running as the Libertarian candidate for State Senate from District 13, which is Lorain and Huron counties. I'm a retired CEO of a manufacturing company and a semi-retired lawyer, and I'm running because I believe in you a good deal more than I believe in the government that you're getting. I want to restore all of your choices. Your choice to educate your children as you see fit, your choice to defend yourselves, your choice to marry, your choice to be pregnant or not, your choice on all things that you're not hurting other folks. I'm also seeking to end mass incarceration and to change the horrible political system we have that tries to take your choices away from you and manage you. My name is Homer Taft. I'm running for State Senate, and I'll appreciate your vote.
And your opening statement, Representative Manning.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us, Chip. I'm Nathan Manning. I'm the state representative for the 55th District. I'm obviously running for State Senate for the 13th, which covers the counties of Huron and Lorain County. I'm a lifelong resident of the district. I graduated from North Ridgeville High School. After graduating law school, I came back up and opened a law practice with my sister Allison. We're still going strong 11 years later. She has not kicked me out of the firm quite yet. During that time, I was also a prosecutor for the city of North Ridgeville. I became the state representative in 2014, and I've held that position for the last 4 years, where I'm currently the criminal justice chair. A couple of bills that I want to talk about really briefly in my opening statement are bills that came from the district. Something I talked about on the campaign trail was working on workforce development. I worked with Lorain County Community College, and we got House Bill 1 passed into law. And then Kevin's Law, which I worked with the Howdy Shell family from Avon Lake. We worked really hard here. They unfortunately lost their son, Kevin. He couldn't get his insulin prescription filled. So we were able to pass a law where you can get that prescription filled in emergency situations. It also lowers healthcare costs because there's a doctor, pharmacy, consult, so you don't have to have those unnecessary doctor's visits. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you all three. And now we're going to begin with our first question, and we'll start with Representative Manning. Do you believe that there will be any significant legislation passed within the next 2 years that will actually address the safety concerns of students attending schools in this country? Why or why not?
Thank you. This question hits close to home for me. My wife is a teacher, and obviously she cares very deeply for her students. I care very deeply for all the students in the state and the country, and we want to ensure their safety. We actually just passed a bill on school resource officers to continue their training, to put more resources, more money into school resource officers, bringing them to more schools. I have a social worker bill that I worked with Andrew Smith from Brookside. He's a social worker himself. We're going to expand social workers to as many ESCs as we possibly can. This is going to help in terms of mental health issues and drug issues. I've also worked with the Sandy Hook Promise, which has really done some great work at North Ridgeville and other schools in the area to, I think it's start with hello, and it's just a really positive message. You really want to, bring prevention here and make sure that, mental health and safety is a top concern for our schools. Thank you.
Mr. Taft, same question.
I'm sure there will be things which the legislature will address to provide more safety and security for students, but most of the answer should be at the local level. In Vermilion, we have a levy on the ballot for safety and security to provide another school resource officer in mental health. That may be a good answer for Vermilion. That is not necessarily the answer for every school district. Lorain has its needs, Avon Lake has its needs, Wellington has its needs, and so forth. That is an issue that we primarily need to solve at the local level, not at the state. What the state can do is provide the supportive infrastructure where necessary.
And Ms. Suida.
Yes, sir. It says that you would like to know any significant legislation that may occur over the course of the next 2 years. And I would hope one of the initiatives I would work diligently for is to reverse the local government funding that's not coming back to our communities. You see, according to Policy Matters Ohio, we've lost more than $1.1 billion. That money would go a long way in shoring up our schools and giving us the resources and the funds to work with, and then double that with the elimination of the loss from ECOT. We've lost billions of dollars in our school system under the current legislature. Those are things I'm going to work on.
Thank you very much. Who has?
Okay, and for your last question, what is your position on one or more of these immigration issues? Wall or no wall, deportations under what conditions, and or separating children from families caught entering this country illegally? And Ms. Suida, we'll start with you.
Thank you. That topic is very near and dear to my heart because I've been actively involved in the work that's being done out in Huron County in regard to the migrant worker situation there, which hits close to home for all of us. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I cannot imagine having to face the fear that those children fear. When they go to school in the morning, they have to have an alternate adult available in case their folks don't come home that night. That's got to stop. We have got to find a responsible path to citizenship. Under no circumstance should we ever tolerate, as a community, a state, or a nation, the prying of children from their parents. Thank you.
Mr. Taft, same question.
First of all, I need to say it's a federal issue, so the state legislature isn't going to get to say a lot about it, so I'll speak to what I believe personally. The first problem with the wall is it won't work. It'll be gone under, gone over, gone around. There will be ways that people will find to come in, if that's their intent. Secondly, I am very pro-immigration for people who want to come here honestly and work or seek refuge. I'm all for having them here. I also believe we have a right to know who's here and to vet them and make sure that they do not intend ill to our country or our persons. By the same token, I do support having things that enforce employer mandates, that they employ people who have been vetted. So those are the positions I would encourage others to have on immigration. But again, as state legislators, we're not going to have really a lot to say about it.
Mr. Manning, same question.
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Taft. This is a federal issue. You know, unfortunately, unlike Ohio, the federal government can't seem to get along and get anything done in a bipartisan way. In Ohio, we passed bills, 91%, I believe is the number, with bipartisan support. And this particular issue, obviously, we're a nation of immigrants. We should embrace that. We need to fix the issue and make sure it's enforced in a fair way with integrity. I truly believe that, you know, separating children from their parents is not, you know, a thing that's any compassionate person would do. We need to figure out a way to do this in a better legal and compassionate way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. I actually have one more question for you guys, starting off with Mr. Manning. Please share your thoughts on the Me Too movement and what your office will do to prevent sexual and other harassment in the workplace if elected.
Thank you. I think the Me Too movement has been very important for us as a society. I currently serve on the board for Genesis House in Lorain County. I'm sure many of you are aware of it. It's something I'm very passionate about, helping victims, something I really came in contact with as a prosecutor for City of North Ridgeville. Through my work on Genesis House and through my experience as a prosecutor, I was able to introduce House Bill 1, which is a dating violence bill. I sponsored that with a Democrat from Akron, so it was a bipartisan bill. We were able to get that passed into law this year. I also was able to pass a bill, introduce a bill with a Democrat from Lake County on outlawing revenge porn. Unfortunately, we're one of the few states that does not outlaw this, and it still obviously creates and ruins lives and creates many victims across the country. I'm also on a bipartisan committee where we're looking at changing the sexual harassment laws at the State House. Obviously, it's a unique situation having elected officials where we technically, our bosses are obviously the voters, but we obviously need a system put in place to make sure that every employee is protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Taft.
We clearly need to enforce laws that provide a safe work and personal space and environment for everyone. We need to provide sufficient penalty to make sure that those who don't follow those rules are punished. By the same token, we have to be very careful when we're talking about private relationships and private people to respect each person's rights and to give fair hearing to all and make no presumptions. We have to make sure that we provide gender equality for all of every gender preference, and treat them in the public sphere in the same way and fairly.
Thank you. And same question, Ms. Sweda.
Thank you. The Me Too movement, first and foremost, was an eye-opener for folks. You know, there have been studies that released by Stop Street Harassment that indicate that almost 81% of the female population has been either a victim of assault or sexual harassment. Now, I've run a business for most of my life, and I've created a culture within my company of respect and dignity for all women and all employees, everybody across the board. I would seek methods of transferring and using that as a footprint, as a model, a method of moving forward. I also feel bullying. You know, I am the only female candidate who's been endorsed by all the women's movements and women's groups, and I'm proud of that because I feel I'll be the best spokesperson for women. Thank you.
Thank you. Now you will each have 1 minute of closing statements. Ms. Weeda, we'll start with you.
Thank you again for having me here this evening. I share with voters all the time that as a realtor, I spent night after night at kitchen tables. And when I was there, I'd be with folks at their best time and their worst times. And I know what keeps them up at night. If I'm elected to Columbus, I'm going to help families find the peace and comfort to sleep again at night, because right now they're troubled about the things that are coming out of Columbus as well as the things Columbus just pretty much ignores. Families want to know how they're going to make a fair living. How are they going to have fair wages? I will be a person who works to create an economy that will offer everyone an opportunity who wants to have the opportunity to make a good living. Under my leadership, I will fight the fear that children fear. I will fight for affordable health care. I will never freeze Medicaid expansion or hinder a woman's right to health care. I will see to the things so that our constituents can go back to sleep at night, and I'll work hard to do so. So I ask the honor of your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Taft, your 1 minute.
I want to thank the coalition for giving us all this opportunity and thank all of you. I hope that I will earn your vote. We talk a lot about whether we're satisfied with how politics are today, and virtually everyone says no. And what do we do? Are the parties ever going to change? And my answer to you is they're not going to change until you stop electing them. When you're in a hole, stop digging. The Libertarian Party offers you a very different vision and a much more civil vision and a much more free vision to protect your rights, your freedoms, and your choices. Bring the government closer to you and less of it so that you have the right to innovate and create. Raise your children as you believe are correct. Take care of your families as you believe is right, not as the government wants you to do. My name is Homer Taft. I'm running for State Senate in Lorain and Huron counties. I hope between now and Election Day, when you can vote at any time, you'll vote.
And Mr. Manning, your 1 minute.
Well, thank you, Chip, for having us, and thank you for the fair but tough questions. I've been a very effective legislator for the last 4 years. As a state representative, I have the privilege of serving as the criminal justice chair at the Ohio House, and I'm very proud to be able to work across the aisle on that committee. We've had over 80 bills referred to our committee. We're one of the busiest committees down there, and every single bill that we pass out of committee has had bipartisan support. I have a proven record of working across the aisle. I already talked about House Bill 1, the dating violence bill, and the revenge porn bill. Both bills I joint sponsored with Democrats. I've showed that I am able to work across the aisle. I've also showed the courage to vote against my party when it isn't going to help my district or my county. I voted no on House Bill 70 because I knew it would be harmful to Lorain and was not a fair method or the right policy at the time. Some of my endorsements, I'm endorsed by the Lorain County Realtors. I'm endorsed by both the business community, the Chamber of Commerce, and NFIB. I also have the labor, much labor support. Trade unions, Teamsters, laborers. OEA has endorsed me. I'm very proud of that as they represent the teachers. And my wife is a teacher, my mother is a retired teacher, and I just recently got the endorsement of the Chronicle Telegram. So thank you once again for having us, and hope to count on your support this month. Thank you.
Thank you, and please stay with us as we transition to our last phase of races for the House District. Thank you.
Sergeant Michelle Garcia served meritoriously in Iraq and has the medals to prove it. Soon after leaving the Navy, Lieutenant Chris Scott found a job, a home, and started a family of his own. Corpsman Richard Stokely took the skills he learned in Vietnam and put them to good use as a paramedic. But soon after leaving the military, each of these veterans fell on hard times and faced homelessness. Even after Michelle lost all her savings, even after Chris wasn't able to pay his mortgage, and even after Richard battled alcoholism for years, they each reached out for help when they needed it most. A simple phone call put them in touch with a trained professional from the Department of Veterans Affairs. That call got Michelle a place to stay until she could afford one of her own, put Chris in touch with employment assistance, and found Richard a substance abuse program. These veterans are success stories not only for how they were able to help others while serving their country, but for how they were able to let others help them. If you know of or are a veteran in need, make the call.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And we're nearing now the final phase. We have 2 races to go. And we're going to begin with the House race for State Representative of the 55th District with 3 candidates. The candidates are Mr. W. Daniel Fichtel, Ms. Kelly Kraus-Menke, and Senator Gail L. Manning. Mr. Fichtel is the Libertarian, Ms. Kraus the Democrat, and Senator Manning is the Republican. So we're going to begin with opening statements, and we'll begin with you, Mr. Fichtel.
All right. Thank you very much, and thank you for having us at this forum today. My name is Dan Fichtel. I am running for your vote as the House District 55 candidate for the Libertarian Party. I am also the chair of the Lorain County Libertarian Party. I am running because I want to give voters another choice. The largest block of voters is not Republican, not Democrat, but independent. And those voters don't feel like they have a voice anymore in government. And I simply want to make sure that those voters are represented.
Thank you. Senator Manning.
Thank you, Chip, for hosting the candidates forum this evening. I believe it's the longest running one in Lorain County, if I'm not mistaken. I'm Gail Manning. I've had the honor to represent you in Columbus as your state senator for the last 8 years. Before I became a state senator, though, I was an elementary school teacher, mostly 3rd grade, for 37 years, a career that I thoroughly loved. I also served on council at large for 2 years in my hometown of North Ridgeville, where I've lived for over 40 years. While your state senator, I was a transportation chair during a time when the governor was considering leasing or selling the turnpike. I made sure that did not happen. I am now in leadership and am very proud to have served for the 8 years on the Ohio Hispanic Latino Commission with Mary Santiago. I look forward to the questions. Thank you.
And Ms. Kraus-Menke.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to make it tonight and happy to see all of you here. I'm Kelly Kraus-Menke. I'm a working woman, wife and mother of 3. My youngest is a 6-month-old. So this is sort of a challenge, but I don't back down from those, just so you know. I'm running in the 55th District, as you've met my opponents. And I'm running a nice, clean race, and so far things are going quite well with that, because what's important here is our families. Our Ohio House has been putting a little too much strain on families. We're seeing that in too many situations. What I would like to do is stand up for our families and for our people, bring a strong voice into the House of Representatives, and also bring meaningful solutions to Ohioans.
Okay, we're going to begin now with our first question, and we'll begin with Ms. Kraus-Menke. The question is, do you believe that there will be any significant legislation passed within the next 2 years that will address the safety concerns of students attending schools in this country? Why or why not?
I'd like to be a part of making that happen in the next 2 years. There's a lot of momentum and a lot of focus on why school safety is so important. It needs improvement. I've talked to parents that are afraid to drop their kids off, which is a very unfortunate situation. Some students are even afraid to go to school. This shouldn't happen. We should have great schools with great teachers, which we've had in Ohio, we need to keep building on. So where I think we can address the issue is in school buildings. As we're seeing some school buildings and districts rebuilding now, we have opportunity to build with newer safety technology. And I think that also gives us a hand at improving emergency communications technology as well. And these two things can address at a level that helps our students feel safe, helps our teachers do their jobs the way that they intend to, and helps our parents feel better about sending their children to school.
Thank you. Senator Manning?
Thank you, Mike. Obviously, being a teacher for 37 years, this issue is very near and dear to my heart. And also having grandchildren now that are school age, we want to make sure that all of our children are protected. But we need to look at why people would do this, especially when you see that possibly children are coming into the school. So one of the bills that I've managed to work on and pass, and it was passed as an amendment into another bill, was Senate Bill 246, because we found out thousands of students are being, from pre-K to third grade, are being expelled and suspended from school. And so we are working with teachers and trying to find different ways of making sure that they're educated to know what they can do differently to make sure that we keep those kids in school so that they have the opportunity to learn and to deal with their mental issues. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Fichtel, do you believe there will be any significant legislation passed within the next 2 years that will address the safety concerns of students attending schools in this country? Why or why not?
I should certainly hope there is not much in the way of legislation. That belongs to the individual school districts to make those choices. What works for Elyria may not be the right decision for Avon Lake, may not be the right decision for Grafton. We need to make sure that the schools have the support of the state, and whatever infrastructure is needed, we can back that up. But those decisions need to come from the districts and be held locally.
Thank you. For your next question, what are your ideas on what Ohio can do to combat the opioid epidemic that is currently destroying our state? Starting with you, Mr. Fichtel.
Thank you. The first thing that we can do is full legalization of marijuana. In states that have full legalization, we've already seen a 25% reduction in opioid use. That is a built-in infrastructure. We've started with medical marijuana here already, but as we know, that has failed to be implemented well. And so we need to switch gears, go away from just medical and to full legalization.
Thank you. Senator Manning.
Thank you for the question. I believe that Lorain County was well ahead of the game when it came to understanding the problem that was ahead of us. In 2013, I was approached by Chief Rivera from Lorain and Sheriff Stamiti and also our coroner to say that there was going to be a problem with many people dying in Lorain County, and they wanted to make sure that first responders could carry Narcan. So I worked with them on legislation that made sure that if a police group wanted to be able to be trained and carry Narcan, that they could make that decision on their own. Lorain was the first one in the state that did so, and they were supposed to do the pilot program for a year because it was just in Lorain County, but because the rest of the state saw the number of lives that we were saving in Lorain County, there was another bill that was passed to make it so that the whole state had to do this. So I've been ahead of the game on this, but because I've talked to people locally. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Kraus-Menke.
Thank you. In my work with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, I was a board member as well as a volunteer for many years. And in understanding what I do about mental illness and working with our county board, I realize and have seen that there has been a great loss of funding on our local level to these services. And when we think about mental illness, I don't want us to lose sight that very often that is a reason for and very closely tied to addiction. And when we treat these issues separately, we aren't paying attention to what's really going on. And I do see that we can help from the state level by helping to fund our county boards, our local services in mental illness and addiction so that they can continue and improve the services they are providing in our communities.
Okay, and for your final question, the general incivility that appears to be the current standard in Washington at this time is of great concern to citizens throughout the country. Demonstrate that you know enough about your opponents to say something positive about them. And we will start with Ms. Kraus-Menke.
Thank you. Absolutely, there is reason to have respect. And that's what political discourse is about, right? And facing the camera. Well, I do give a great nod to Senator Manning and her work for education in our area. It has been a very good service to us. I do appreciate that and applaud it. Mr. Fichtel, I'm just getting to know you, and I do appreciate the opportunity because your perspective on laws, regulation, constitution is refreshing and also needed. So I do appreciate that. And these are things that we need to remember to do, that we're having conversations, that we're working together. We may not agree on the course of action moving forward, but we can at least come to common ground and use compromise as a way to make sure that we're serving the people, because that's what this role is about.
Senator Manning, same question.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's so very important to say kind things about everyone all the time. And one of the things that we do in Columbus as compared to Washington is the fact that we pass most of our bills are bipartisan. We work across the aisle, possibly because we're a smaller body of people and we've gotten to know each other personally. So I think that's very important. Kelly is a wonderful mother, and I know she has 3 small children, and this is a sacrifice for her, and I appreciate the fact that she's willing to do that. Mr. Fichtel, I've just met this evening. I believe he works with tech, a tech program, don't you? Yes, so I'm very impressed. Obviously, he has to be much more intelligent than me when it comes to those kinds of things.
Mr. Fichtel, same question.
I do agree. What I see with parties fighting each other has been absolutely ridiculous. One of our representatives in another district just said that he was told at a fair that if he was a Democrat, they would have spit on him. And that's absolutely not the way that adults should be treating each other. And again, I'm just getting to know both of my opponents. I do know that both of them have been wonderful mothers, and of course, Ms. Manning has then been blessed to be a wonderful grandmother as well, which, sorry, Mom. But I will say that I know that even though the 3 of us have different approaches to the way that things should be done, it all comes from the same place where we do want what's best for Ohio and its citizens.
Thank you. And now you will each have 1 minute of closing statements. Mr. Fichtel, we'll start with you.
Right. Again, I am just running to make sure that there is another voice in the conversation, a different way of approaching things. I do a lot of work in the tech field. What I do is solve problems. When I'm sent out to help a client, it's not to find a Band-Aid, but to find a fix so that thing does not happen a second time. And we are looking for solutions, not temporary Band-Aids. I want to make sure that every one of you has the option to vote for somebody who is not left, not right, but just free. Thank you.
Thank you. And Senator Manning, your 1 minute.
Thank you, and thank you again, Chip, for hosting this evening. In closing, I'd like to share where we were the year before I was elected to the state senate and where we are now. In 2010, unemployment was over 10%, with over 600,000 Ohioans out of work. The state of Ohio's unemployment is now 4.5%, the lowest unemployment since 2001. We were 48th in the nation for job creation, and we are now second. There was an $8 billion deficit and 89 cents in the rainy day fund. We now have a balanced budget and over $2 billion in the rainy day fund. Ohio wages are growing 25% faster than the rest of the nation. There is much more we need to work on to continue moving Ohio forward, and I hope to be given that opportunity. I want to make sure my grandchildren, when they are much older, find a great career in Ohio so that they live near me. I want that same for your children and your grandchildren. I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you. Ms. Kraus-Menke, your closing remark.
Thank you very much for such a wonderful evening. As a young girl, my parents instilled in me to serve others. I was able to grow that with Girl Scouts, at school, at church, and embarking on new journeys, breaking some barriers, breaking some glass ceilings. So I'm very happy to be here in front of you tonight asking for your vote. I'm Kelly Kraus-Menke. I'm a candidate for state representative in Ohio's 55th district. I love being a working mom and an advocate for families. And as I mentioned before, too many families in our community are struggling. I'm here to earn your vote so that I may be a real voice. I will bring new leadership with meaningful solutions to our State House.
Thank you. And that concludes this race. We will be moving into our final race, and we would like to invite Mr. Miller and Mr. Weber.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is our last race that we're going to be discussing tonight. Again, my name is Mike Ferrer. I'm the advocacy chair for CHIP. This is Ariana Marcano. She's a recent Lorain High graduate, now attending her first year of college, and the co-coordinator of our annual Hispanic Leadership Conference, Ms. Alicia Pardon. So, welcome to the State Representative 56th District race, where we have two gentlemen, Mr. Joe Miller, who is the Democratic candidate, and Mr. Rob Weber, who's a Republican candidate. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. And we're going to begin with our opening statement, and we'll begin with you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Thank you, Chip. The Coalition of Hispanic Latino Issues in Progress has been very important to providing opportunities for those who live in the community and the surrounding areas to go and hear from us candidates. And I think it's very important that not only do you get to hear from us, that we get out and we get among you and we get to hear what are your concerns. And that's something that I pride myself on. I'm Joe Miller. I'm running for State District 56. Yes, I'm the Democratic candidate who's hoping to replace an outgoing Dan Ramos, who's done a fantastic job here. He's handing off the torch. I hope to carry it proudly. I hope to serve all my fellow constituents here, from Lorain to Amherst to Oberlin, and all the outlying communities of Sheffield, Lake Vermilion, and the townships. Once again, I'm Joe Miller. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very excited to serve you as a family man, coming from a working class family, learning the values that have been brought to this district from a middle class of working families in the steel mill, the auto industry, and the other opportunities that have come about. I look forward to bringing those values and bringing the opportunity to serve you and discuss more. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weber, your opening statement, sir.
Good evening. My name is Rob Weber. My father is a Vietnam War veteran, and my grandfather earned a Purple Heart and many other medals in World War II. But you have never heard me talk about this proud history, nor will you ever hear me mention it again. And that's because I do not need to ride the coattails of anyone else's credentials. So we are perfectly clear. I am the only candidate in this race with any military service. I was blessed to have received my education and training at America's premier leadership institute, the United States Military Academy at West Point. I served 9 years of active duty service, leading combat armed soldiers in the Army. I have always been a supporter of Second Amendment rights and have been a life member of the NRA since 1975, a consistent advocate for Second Amendment rights. I am very confident that I am the best and most qualified candidate in this race.
Thank you. And now we'll go into our first question, and we will begin with you, Mr. Weber. please tell us what attributes and skills you have and how you wish to use these attributes and skills and how you will use these attributes and skills to champion issues important to the voters who elect you to office.
Obviously, I have much leadership training, both at West Point and in my 9 years of active duty service in the military. Those leadership skills will enable me to be a community leader, be a leader for the 56th District, and to go down to Columbus and be a leader in the State House. Additionally, I've served for 15 years as a trial lawyer, and primarily the last 10 years in the Lorain County area. I help regular people who are on the street that have real problems and real issues, people that come from all different walks of life, various diversities, ethnic, racial, religious diversities, and I manage those kind of problems on every single day. I am a problem solver, and that is part of my job as a trial lawyer. I've tried over 30 jury trials myself, including many multi-million-dollar verdicts, multiple multi-million-dollar verdicts and cases. Those skills and being an advocate will serve me in this office.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, same question.
Thank you. It's an excellent question, and I think that this is one that's going to set us apart. I'm very proud to say that over the years of education and teaching, having experience in both the private and public sector, having led organizations, both through my church and my community, I can honestly say that I'm ready to go down there and advocate for you. And I say this very confidently because the attributes it takes to lead are important, and I commend my opponent for his service. I commend my family members for theirs, both in the military and law enforcement. But what I'm going to bring is I'm going to bring the ability to listen. I'm going to bring the ability to take both sides of the argument, to research it, and to find the right solution. And I'm going to lead with the right solution, not the political solution, not the party solution, not the solution that's going to help the few. I'm going to bring the solution and leadership abilities that are going to provide solutions that are going to help the many, and that are going to be based in an idea of equality for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. For your second question, does cultural competence have relevance to you in terms of office you seek? If the answer is yes, are there any steps you would take to ensure that your staff and other applicable personnel are culturally competent with dealing with the community? I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think cultural diversity, cultural competence is very important in understanding the needs of people. I'm privileged enough to teach psychology and sociology, and I expect my students to understand the impact and importance of the different cultures that will go ahead and provide different solutions to the needs of this area. And they're all going to be different. As we know, cultures are based on family, cultures are based on religion. A lot of times the socioeconomic factors that set in impact people differently. You have to be open to that. You have to be empathetic to that. You have to be understanding of that. And you have to find the right solutions based on the people you serve. And once again, those things need to be addressed. Those concerns need to be there. And I'm going to listen to all people. It doesn't matter what race, what color, what creed, what zip code, what size of your wallet, your bank account. Because I care about all of you. And I'll be here for you. And that's why it's important to have cultural competency in your staff.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Same question, Mr. Weber.
Through my years in the Army, I had much equal opportunity cultural diversity training. Frankly, I was shocked when I got into the civilian world at how far behind regular life was. It was flooring to me. So I have those values with me. Soldiers from all over the country, all ethnic diversities, all walks of life. I believe that everyone deserves to be treated equally and with respect. When it comes to my trial practice here in Lorain County, again, I represent people from all sorts of ethnicities and different diversities and help people solve those issues. As a representative, I would ensure that my office is trained on ethnic issues and religious issues so that they can listen to the needs of the people and myself and listen and fully understand, so that we're breaking down cultural barriers and not having miscommunications with language issues or cultural issues, and so that my staff and myself are properly trained to understand these issues. It is vitally important.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. And for your final question, starting with you, what do you feel it would take for the two dominant parties in the United States to work together to resolve problems facing our community or our country?
Obviously, this two-party system is controversial, and it's probably the best of our possible systems. Not that it's an ideal system, but it's the best that we have. I think, first off, you have to have people that are willing to work in bipartisan ways to achieve goals. You've heard many of the speakers here talk about in Ohio that we're doing a relatively good job of that, and from my observation, that seems to be true. I also believe that we need to elect officials who are independent-minded in thinking, who are not part of the foundational institutions, and people that are willing to work on both sides of the aisle. Additionally, I think we need to elect officials who are not politically career-minded, people that are going to serve for their period of time and not look to build their careers and stay in office forever.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Same question.
Thank you. So once again, the question is, how do I feel about two dominant parties in the United States working together to resolve these problems that are facing? We are very partisan in nature right now, and we understand that. I don't believe right now in Ohio we're seeing bipartisanship. Bipartisanship is when both groups will come together. They'll negotiate, they'll compromise. And they're not going to walk away with what they want, but they're going to walk away with what's palatable to both people on both sides of the argument. That's not happening. It's obvious that we need some balance restored. Electing me, a Democrat, to help bring that balance, I think will be a most help. But I also think that if you're really down there for the right reasons, you're down there because you want to help families, you want to help communities, and in the end, you're going to help the state of Ohio and the rest of the country. And we're going to do that by bringing some balance to Ohio. That has to happen. It's not happening currently. I'm here to help bring some balance to Ohio's legislature. If you elect me, Joe Miller, for District 56, I promise to work in a bipartisan way. Thank you.
Thank you. Now you will both each get 1 minute in closing statements. Mr. Miller, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Well, once again, we're here at a crossroads where we have people diving to each side of the political ideological spectrum. And we're looking for people to come forward that are willing to be empathetic to everybody's issues, willing to listen to them, to care about them truly, and to try to find solutions that are going to matter. And they're going to matter in such a way that they're going to bring positive benefits. What I've seen so far is the fact that we have sent money down to Columbus, and it's not coming back. You know, I came from a working class family that taught me the meaning of hard work and service to others. And I care about what you have to say, and I'm going to go to Columbus to take that there. We need to create a more living wage jobs, improve our schools, and make public safety, especially the opioid addiction in particular, a top priority. You know, I was a family man, I'm a teacher, I'm a councilman, I'm involved in my church and my community. I've led different organizations, and I'm here to tell you that I know what it takes to find solutions, to navigate complicated governmental agencies and the legislation that it's going to take to get these things done. I'm Joe Miller, I'm running for District 56. I am your Democratic candidate, and I hope to be your state legislator. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Weber, your closing statement.
Ever since I graduated from West Point and spent 9 years of active duty service in the Army, I knew I would dedicate my life to serving and leading people in public service. I am not here as a Republican or a Democrat. I proudly am not part of the establishment. I am an independent, analytical thinker. I'm a problem solver, helper, servant, and leader. If you are happy with the conditions in Lorain and Lorain County overall, then you should probably vote the way this county has voted for the last in this district for the last 5 or 6 decades, 50 or 60 or more years. But if you want real change with someone that has actual leadership experience, who will actually serve you, then I would like and ask for your vote. My name is Rob Weber. I'm running for the 56th district, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you. And you guys are done?
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chip.
And I would like to reintroduce the president of CHIP, the Coalition for Hispanic Latinos Issues in Progress, Juanita Senkis.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. And it went a little over, but we have to squeeze this all in 2 hours when Bob gets a chance to fix this tape here. As we conclude here tonight, I'd like to thank, of course, Bob Schlemberger from Lorain City School, Mr. David Hardy, our CEO of Lorain City School, Daniel Garvey, who's the principal here at the high school, and our operations staff, timekeeper Pablo Senkis and Tomas Cabasa, our greeters, I think with Becky Rodriguez, I don't know if Eileen, I see Eileen Torres there, and of course Gual is here who helped us out also. Visit our website, chiplorain.com. Find more information regarding our organization here. And of course, don't forget to vote on November 6th. Your vote is your voice. Thank you.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools TV 20 WLCS.